Howdy guys, Jimmy Song here for Off Chain. I haven't done a video in a while, so I decided to do something today, and I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to talk about. Well, I have an idea on what I'm going to talk about, but we'll see how this goes. It's one of those things where you don't really know how it's going to play out. Anyway, we'll see, right? Like there's maybe like 10 people right now, so I have no idea how many people are going to actually show up. It's like Friday night, a lot of people are probably out doing something interesting instead of watching YouTube. I will say though that I did do my class in Toronto and it was great. I love teaching, and that's one of my really big passions is getting to teach people, especially motivated students. It's at one point I had designs on becoming sort of a university math professor, and I didn't go down that route just because I felt like it was a very lonely road. And at another point, I wanted to be a high school math teacher, but again, it felt like it was not going to be quite as rewarding as I had imagined, because a lot of people just simply aren't that motivated to learn. With programming blockchain, though, it's amazing because people are paying for it. They're very motivated to learn. It's amazing. Every time I start the class at like 8:30, there's always like several people there way before. And I try to get there around 8:15. Almost always have people there before I get there, which is saying something. People are so eager to learn that they're there early. Anyway, it was a lot of fun teaching people. Toronto is a wonderful city, especially this time of year. I totally recommend visiting. Let me share with you a little screen just to give you an idea of where I am going to go next. Let me see here. Where is it? There we go. Can you guys see this? It's not showing, it looks like. All right, let's see if I can get that to show better. Hopefully, there we go. I think that'll be better. All right. So there we go. There are some planned dates. Toronto is obviously over. I need to go and update this website. But Sao Paulo is in like 12 days. Denver, Colorado is the one after that, July 9th and 10th. San Francisco, California, July 26th and 27th. There might possibly be Chicago if you are interested in, Chicago, or if you're nearby and interested in doing that, please let me know. I need to get an idea of how many people would show up before I sort of commit to, venue and all this other stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of Bitcoin and blockchain related companies in that area, so I have no idea, but that's something to consider. All right, on to some things that I wanted to talk about. Let's start with this one. A lot of people are familiar with the bet that I made with Joe Lubin. His Twitter handle is Ethereum Joseph. He, of course, told me that he would be in touch after he made that bet with me at Consensus. I've tweeted at him twice now, and he still has not answered. So I'm wondering what the heck he's, he's trying to pull here. I mean, he's the one that proposed the bet. He's the one that said he'd be in touch. He hasn't responded at all. And this is just sort of, I don't know if he's busy or if he did that just for show or whatever. But the fact that he hasn't contacted me in like 2 weeks tells me that he's not, it was all for show, and that he wanted to save face or something by making a bet, or, he just wants to get out of having to lose some Bitcoin that he has or something like that. But regardless, I'd like to hear from him, maybe even have him on my show and talk about exactly what sort of crisp criteria he's talking about. I imagine CoinDesk will be releasing the video soon enough for those of you that missed it. But this is one of those things where, if you're gonna do something that theatrical on stage, you should kind of follow up, no? But anyway, we'll see what happens with that one. But that's something that I wanted to point out here and sort of call him out publicly a little bit. Here's the other bet that I wanted to make. I called out Roger Ver for this article. This was from The Independent. Let's just click through and read exactly what it said. All right, so I did talk to him. All right, so Ghost Story is sort of like, yeah, doing something. Oh, that's a video anyway. Yeah, no big deal there. So Roger Ver was interviewed by Anthony Cuthbertson about a variety of topics, and basically I called him out on it, right? I said, well, okay, his quote right here is, "I see it happening. I believe it's imminent." Mr. Ver told The Independent Ethereum could overtake Bitcoin by the end of the year, and Bitcoin Cash could do the same before 2020. Now, I called him out about this and said, hey, do you want to put some money where your mouth is? Because that's a very provocative thing to say, and obviously something that is that I don't think will happen. So I suggested that he put some money where his mouth is. He did respond to me privately and said, well, read the quote again. And I did. And I proposed some what I thought were pretty fair terms. And he said, did you not read the quote? I said it could happen. Well, that's only part of what he said, right? Right here it says, I see it happening. And it is clearly the flippening that he's talking about. And I believe it's imminent. Do you believe that or not, Mr. Ver? That was really what I asked in this tweet over here when I said, to quote, I see it happening and I believe it's imminent. Now, I asked him straight up. I said, hey, if the reporter misquoted you, I totally understand. And if that's what, if he misquoted you, I'll just drop everything and whatever. But he insisted that what was quoted in the article, the thing that he said, was in context the correct thing, and that he did indeed say this. So I was like, hey, all right then, let's make a bet. And he said, well, no, I said Ethereum could, which doesn't make any sense because he says, I believe it's imminent. So he's kind of saying something like either making a meaningless provocative statement just for a provocative title like this, in which case he's just just trying to make some noise or cheerlead or something like that without putting any skin in the game. Or he's just he actually believes it. He just doesn't have any time to get back to me. I've been contacting him for over 2 weeks. He does not seem to want to engage in any way. Even to this tweet, he did not engage at all. I thought I was pretty fair. The terms of the bet were something like, whoever's market cap is higher by like January 1st, 2019 or January 1st, 2020 or whatever, whoever's coin is higher, the loser has to pay in that coin some percentage of the total supply of that coin, which I think is a very fair way to make the bet. But he doesn't seem interested. He's just sort of like, shouting at the rooftops that Bitcoin Cash is the real Bitcoin or something like that, but doesn't want to back it up with actual money. He can obviously do whatever he wants, but I don't see any reason why anyone would take him at his word if he says something like, I see it happening and I believe it's imminent. And to quote, he said that this is not misquoted, that this is actually what he said, but he doesn't want to put any money behind it, which to me is just, completely empty. I don't see how you can take any of his words at face value because he doesn't want to back it up. So that's what I think. If he wants to go and, talk to me about it or whatever, I'm here. He knows how to contact me. We follow each other on Twitter, so he can direct message me or whatever. But he doesn't seem to want to talk about this at all. I see it happening, and I believe it's imminent. If you really believe it's imminent, then you put some money where your mouth is, instead of, just sort of bloviating about it or weaseling out of a bed with the word could or something like that, which is what he seems to want to do. All right, so those are two things that I wanted to just sort of call out people on. Two other sort of more happy things that I want to talk about. I'm having 2 more shows this week. This week, by the way, is going to be full of lots of content. Not only am I having these 2 videos that I'm going to talk about in a second, 2 interviews that are happening on Tuesday and Wednesday. I also have an AMA with this other website that I'm doing on Friday. And also the consensus video, I'm guessing, is probably going to come out. But the McCombs conference video, which to quote Tone, was way better than the consensus one, is also going to come out in the next week or so. So watch for all of that. So I'm going to have like a whole crap ton of content coming out this week, as opposed to the last 2 weeks where I didn't really have that much. So that should be really, really fun. Anyway, the thing that I'm going to talk to Matt Corallo about is this better hash mining protocol. If you have any questions for him, this would be it. But just to give you sort of a preview, he's making something that's better than sort of what mining pools currently are, and there's a lot to this BIP, and there's a lot of different protocol things that are defined in this BIP. But suffice it to say, this is going to be a much better way to do pooled mining. There's some very logical and important things that he's adding to the protocol that are going to be really cool, and we're going to talk about it on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, noon Pacific time. It's going to be great. He's sort of going around and doing the podcasting scene, so I'm honored to have him consider me as somebody that can interview him. So that'll be a lot of fun. The other one that I want to talk about is this anthology by my friend my friend Ken Liu has in his as part of it, and this is kind of off the wall a little bit, not exactly what you would expect, but 12 Tomorrows. My friend Ken Liu has a story in it. If you don't know who he is, he's one of the premier sci-fi authors. A lot of people don't know, but we've been friends for about 20 years, and we've known each other a long time. We've worked together at 2 different companies and everything else. But he's an amazing author. He translated The Three-Body Problem. He's also won multiple Hugo and Nebula Awards. He's also got his own science fiction fantasy series. I think it's called, he's created almost a whole new genre called Silkpunk. Anyway, the reason I want to bring him on the show is because he has a story in 12 Tomorrows that's about cryptocurrency and sort of this interesting mix between VR, cryptocurrency, what truth is, and how things get manipulated, which I think many of you may sort of like. A lot of the themes that are in that story are very much along the lines of kind of what you see out of sort of media and Twitter, and even like a lot of the marketing that you see around ICOs and things like that. But of course, at a deeper and more fundamental level. So I'm really excited to have him on my show. We've been friends for a long time, so not sure how that'll go. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing or whatever. It'll be a lot of fun to talk about his story. I think it's called Byzantine Empathy. A lot of people don't know, but he's an amazing coder, one of the best that I've ever worked with. And he also has a talent for writing some amazing science fiction stories. If you've not read The Paper Menagerie and a bunch of his other stories, you're totally missing out. And he's just a wonderful, wonderful writer. So I'm excited for that on Wednesday as well. So, those are some of the things that are coming up. Like I said, there's also the McCombs conference sort of rant that I kind of went on about a month before consensus that's coming out this week. Probably the CoinDesk video will be available this week as well. And then I got these 2 interviews, plus I'm doing an AMA on Friday. I'll probably be on the Bitcoin morning brief with Tone for at least a few of the days next week. So a lot of different things coming up, a lot of interesting things to come up. Let's go to the chat and see if there are any questions. If not, then we'll sort of end this early. If so, we'll just let's see. Looks like Ethereum Joseph is avoiding Jimmy Song. Yep. Yep, that's pretty much what I said. Yeah, that's about it. I don't see really any questions. There's just a bunch of people complaining about this or that, and that's totally fine. If you are interested in learning Bitcoin programming from me on the, please sign up for one of the many, upcoming sessions. I would love to teach motivated people, and there's certainly a lot of demand still out there. I'm an experienced engineer. What resources should I study to get blockchain Bitcoin experience? Any online classes or curriculums? Oh, good question. Well, I'm actually working on an online curriculum. I want to take the class that I've been teaching sort of in person online. I'm working with some people to see if I can make that happen in a way that makes sense and keeps it sort of high quality. It might at first be sort of like a webinar type thing, but after you've taken my class, you definitely know the ins and outs of the blockchain of Bitcoin. That's why it's called programming blockchain, right? So yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Let's see. Here's another one. Why don't tokenization of stocks make any sense? Well, so I'm working on an article, very much about sort of smart contracts, but this is sort of at the crux of why smart contracts aren't quite that useful. And it's because you can't sort of forcefully link anything in the real world with anything on a blockchain. Now, if you issue the stocks on the blockchain itself and sort of let it flow that way, that might work, but then you have all sorts of questions. What happens if somebody loses their private key? What happens then? Does the company that issued the stock reissue them and sort of invalidate it? Then why the hell are you using the blockchain in the first place, right? There's a lot of questions along those lines. But also, most of these companies that want to do sort of stock trading on the blockchain are hoping that you can sort of link the Apple stock that already exists into some sort of tracked ERC20 token or something like that. And that doesn't make sense because you need somebody to sort of link the two, right? Like some authority to say that this token on the Ethereum blockchain is equivalent to 1 share of Apple stock. And that requires some sort of central authority to enforce. And once again, you have the same problems. What happens if somebody loses their key, right? Do they reissue it? Who issues it? Does it go away? Does the company benefit? Who benefits? It's got a lot of different pitfalls, and it doesn't really fit the traditional model of stock issuance very well, which is why I don't think tokenization really makes sense. All right, let's see here. Do you believe in NEO or Power Ledger? No. Any resources you recommend for people who are just getting started programming but want to get into Bitcoin-related development? Well, I really like Python for Everyone. That's just like a way to get into Python programming without it seeming too intimidating. There's, it's a very it's meant for non-programmers to learn programming, and that's a very good way to get started. And after you've done that course, if you can complete maybe 10 problems on Project Euler, then you can pretty much take my course. And that's not a bad way to get in. And obviously there's a lot of other skills that you probably need to actually be a software engineer at a firm, like source control and code review and testing and all these other things. But you can, it's a pretty good start. The art of software engineering is something that I don't necessarily teach you, and not too many places actually do. And that's like a tweet that I wrote a while back, is that most CS programs don't actually teach that stuff. But yeah, that's something that might be interesting. All right, let's see. Jimmy, all right, so what is the current employment outlook for BTC programmers? How competitive will it be 3 to 5 years from now, in your opinion? Well, 3 to 5 years ago, there wasn't quite as much demand. And, certainly the people that got in then are doing very well now. If you get in now, I mean, like, the worst, outcome is that you still know some programming, and I don't think the demand for programmers in general will go down. So the worst possibility is that you still would end up with some sort of programming job, assuming that you have some talent in this area. The best possibility, the upside that you have, is that you become like really good at this stuff, and there is still demand, and that's a great way to make a lot of money. So I mean, that's a pretty high floor and a pretty high ceiling. That's not a bad place to be. All right, Jimmy, what is fair BTC price from your perspective end of year? No TA, just you. I mean, depends what you mean by fair, I guess. I mean, I see sort of fiat as this thing that just continues to get inflated. The Fed's continuing to print money. So a fair price would be, one where the supply, the percentage of Bitcoins that you have as a percentage of total supply is equivalent in US dollar terms. Now that is probably not realistic by the end of the year or anything like that, but that's what I would perceive as fair. But yeah, I don't know. If you're asking me to be sort of like a prophet or something, I'm not gonna. That's a great. Yeah, let me turn the camera off and back on again. See if I can. Yeah, yeah. That's not happening. I don't know what's wrong with the camera. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I unplug it and replug. It comes back. All right, there we go. I'm back. Yeah, I hate it when that happens, and that was like the worst possible screen cap that I could have gotten. All right, let's see some other questions here. Wow, like I had like 0, and then all of a sudden, tons of people are coming in. Will possibility of L2 stall deployment of Lightning? I don't think so. I mean, I think Lightning continues to get deployed. Obviously, if L2 works out, that will sort of work in parallel with you. I think it really depends. There aren't that many Lightning devs, so it is possible that the L2 will suck some resources from just sort of basic Lightning. Can you talk about the UTXO's problem on the seminar forums? UTXO's problem. I'm not sure what you mean by that, so it's hard for me to say. Do forks inflate, undermine BTC non-inflation? No, I don't think so. I mean, here's the question that almost everybody asks about these like crappy forks that like nobody really knows about. Who the hell's buying? And the answer is, well, if it's somebody, obviously. But if you think about it, if a fork is worth maybe like 10 basis points, right? 1/1000th of an actual Bitcoin. You only really need 1/1000th of the purchasing power on the hard fork side in order to satisfy almost everybody on the other side. So 1,000 Bitcoins worth of dumping on the Bitcoin side only needs 1 Bitcoin worth of buying on the other side. So I mean, like if you know anything about any sort of poll, you can't get like 90% of people to agree on almost anything. The fact that like 99.9% of people agree on one side of that fork is kind of amazing, actually. So that's who's buying, and I don't think it undermines anything. You know, the number of Bitcoins continues. It's just that somebody's willing to take the other side of the bet. I mean, it's a very leveraged bet, and that's probably why they're taking it. But you know, that's what they're able to do. Any DEX where coins stay in your hardware wallet that you are excited about? I'm not really familiar with too many decentralized exchanges. How would you employ proof of? Would it involve? I don't really understand that question. Will you be attending Building on Bitcoin in July? Unfortunately, I am not, because I already made plans for that week. So sorry. What are your thoughts on the Zencash project? Nothing. I don't really have any thoughts. I haven't studied it. You know, you have to recognize the fact that in order to really study any of these cryptos or any of these projects, it takes like a 2-week deep dive, right? And that's a lot of time for me to spend on something like that. It's I mean, I have to read the white paper. Most of the time, I'm going to have to look at whatever code that exists. If they don't have code, I just sort of dismiss it out of hand, because unless you have code, it's not really anything. You could promise whatever in a white paper. It doesn't really matter if you don't have code. At least from a technical standpoint, you don't really have anything. So so that's what I look for. And you know, it takes like 2 weeks for me to really deep dive and understand what the heck the code is doing. I mean, I don't understand how like anyone can have like a reasonable opinion on a lot of this stuff if you know, if you don't spend that kind of time, unless it's like bad. You know, with good stuff, it takes a long time to understand. With bad stuff, it can be pretty obvious early. All right. Any plans on creating an online course? Yeah. Like I said, I'm working on that. And the plan is to make programming blockchain an online course, maybe even an online only course. And then I can work on sort of subsequent courses to follow up on programming blockchain, like programming wallet or programming Lightning, or maybe even programming core, something like that. And that's the plan, is to sort of continue to you know, raise the game of the entire developer community, and you know, make sure that everyone that wants to get in and is you know, willing to be trained get that opportunity. All right, what is your best argument against Monero? UTXO size increase. How is XRP ledger secured? By being centralized. Explain big blocks versus small blocks in one sentence once more. I mean, crypto Keynesians versus crypto Austrians. I think I've done that. All right. Anyway, I think that's enough. I've been answering questions for a little while now. You know, hopefully you guys can tune in on Tuesday when Matt Corallo joins me to talk about Better Hash and, you know, the new style of mining pool that he wants to do or enable with the code that he's writing. And Wednesday, when my friend Ken Liu drops by to talk about his new science fiction story. Hopefully that's sort of a crossover. I know probably a lot of you guys read science fiction. So if you are a science fiction fan, that'll be really fun. And, you know, he's been a friend of mine for a long time. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, thanks everybody for joining me. You know, it is Friday night, and I recognize that, you know, it is, you know, kind of a sacrifice for you guys to come watch me. So thank you very much. And this song is done.